You know, if you've lived long enough on our planet to see this video, you've probably met almost every single category of annoying person. There's those people that go everywhere demanding everything and need everything to go their way. There's those other people that just don't know whenever to shut the fuck up because people don't want to hear their bullshit. Or there's those people that think they're the most important person ever and everybody should pay attention to them. But the worst, at least in my experience, has to be the entitled, spoiled brat that just got everything they wanted, no matter what. Usually, these people come from a place of both money and guardians or parents that do not give a shit what they do as long as they don't get bothered while they're doing it. So, they're just handed what they want after the slightest bit of panhandling, no matter how big and ridiculous these demands are. And if they didn't get it, you'd think the world was ending if you heard what they had to say about it. Now, as adults, most people don't act like this around the world simply because very few people in the world are even in a position to act like this, and if they are, normal people like me and you are not going to encounter this. They're probably in Cancun somewhere with more money than you or me could even dream of. But if we look into certain places and pockets in our world, we can see these rare species gathered together in frighteningly large numbers. So today, we're going to take a journey into the NBA. More specifically, the Los Angeles Lakers fan base. So I'm here to tell you that Lakers fans are by far the most spoiled, entitled, whiny, baby-ass fan bases and communities of all time. Now, why would I say that? Why would I be so aggressive towards the Lakers? Well, that's because I'm one of their fans. So I can tell you firsthand how much of a coddled toddler I really am. Now, to tell you about the spoiled fan base, I need to tell you how they got spoiled, right up until they finally no longer got their way. So let's go through a brief history of around 67 years before the Lakers faced any extended period of struggle. Right when the Lakers franchise first started, they had the bright idea of winning the 9% chance to land George Mikan after the team that signed him just pulled out of the league to go bankrupt, because that's what sports teams did in the 50s. Keep in mind, this guy was basically an NBA player who could play right now and get a cool 18-8, while most of the rest of the NBA is, respectfully, large plumbers. The Minneapolis Lakers franchise starts with 5 championships in 6 years, which means they now have more championships here than 25 other NBA teams have had in their entire history. Then they had a period where they were losing in the finals a lot to the Golden Boy Celtics, who were getting their run of 11 championships. But don't feel too bad, because they get their championship in the end anyway. And then after a bit, the greatest basketball player of all time at the time decides, I want to be a Laker, so he just falls into the Lakers' lap. They're still kind of mediocre for a bit despite that. Except they also get gifted the #1 overall pick in one of the greatest drafts ever because they gave the Jazz some 33-year-old past their prime. Then the Lakers became basically half of the entire NBA in the 80s after having 2 generational talents just fall into their lap with no work required. 5 championships in the 80s. And then after that, Michael Jordan happened. And then Hakeem Olajuwon happened. And then Michael Jordan happened again. So, can't really beat that. Except then they just signed the one guy in the Eastern Conference who ever stopped Michael Jordan. And then that same offseason, some high school kid just decided to show up to LA instead of Charlotte. Three-peat. Mr. Big Diesel leaves, and the Lakers are mediocre for about another 3 years before the NBA decides, okay, it's time to give the Lakers another Hall of Fame big guy. Repeat. But after that, tragedy strikes. And I don't mean the Lakers don't get what they want. They get another Hall of Fame big man. But this time, it actually doesn't work out. Also, Kobe Bryant's body just explodes at this point. So now, they're bad for like 5 seasons in a row. And of course, a fan base that has had this much success for this long while other franchises would kill to have maybe a quarter of the success they have, maybe the fans would be a little more satisfied with what they have. I mean, surely they can handle just a few years where some superstar doesn't just decide to jump to LA, right?
We want another star free agent.
I have LeBron. What's he brought me? Nothing.
We need all 4 balls in LA.
You had one job. You had one job.
We want to fire everyone.
So I want to preface this section by saying that it's around right here where I started watching the game of basketball seriously. Just like any other kid who was alive during the 2000s decade, I thought that Kobe was probably the best player ever, and that meant that the Lakers would probably win a lot of games. Unfortunately, As a casual fan, I was not privy to the information that Kobe's body was literally falling apart at the seams. And now, me and some 60-year-old Los Angeles native around 2,600 miles away from me would actually have something in common. This would be the first time either of us watched our basketball team be genuinely bad. Because in the year of our Lord 2014, superstars didn't find playing with geriatric veterans one step into the retirement home and a bunch of 20-somethings picked up off the street to fill bench space appealing enough to just drop everything and move to LA. Now, they just had to go through what the rest of the NBA has been through at this point. Lose until ping pong balls dictate you get to be good again. This is basically how a vast majority of teams that aren't Los Angeles, Boston, or LeBron James got their rings. But let me let you in on a little secret. These Lakers fans, I looked around, I was getting around at the time, I didn't see too many pure Lakers fans clamoring for Jordan Clarkson or Larry Nance Jr. I'm gonna be honest with you. No, these guys, they don't know patience. They know winning, and winning fast and easy. Every single year, all they do is just cling to what they know. And you know what? They were actually almost completely justified. Because back in 2015, before the Lakers have a shadow of their young core by the way, the Lakers just finished a 21-61 season where Swaggy P was legitimately their number one option at times in this season. Now, no disrespect to the GOAT Nick Young, but if this guy is your number one option, you might not be winning a whole lot. So now they go into the offseason after the most promising thing for the future at the time was that Jordan Clarkson had a half-decent Kobe impression sometimes, and that Julius Randle broke his leg, so we're not actually sure whether he's bad or good next year. So it stands to reason that if the Lakers were any normal team, no free agent with winning in mind would actually hope to join this team instead of, a good franchise that could win basketball games on occasion. Fortunately for the Lakers, they are not a normal franchise, and LaMarcus Aldridge, probably the biggest free agent name in that class and potentially a Hall of Famer, now has to make a very, very tough decision between the death machine Spurs, who won like 60 games last season, and the ghost of the Los Angeles Lakers franchise, who lost around 60 games this season. And of course, despite just how many advantages San Antonio had over Los Angeles as a basketball destination, the only reason that San Antonio won over Los Angeles, reportedly, is that they just had a better presentation. That was it. That is just how much better you needed to be in order to convince a superstar to not go to Los Angeles and instead go to your team. And of course, since they were this close, well, Lakers fans had no reason to let this go. We had DeMar DeRozan, Paul George, all these guys. We're just expecting to get every single one of them while we're still rebuilding and have around 20 19-year-olds playing for us right now. But you know what? The old school approach was kinda working. Maybe the Lakers could actually just be like everybody else. It's a great story. The Lakers finally learned to walk the path most taken in order to get to a championship, like everybody else. Pay their dues like all the other franchises that came before and after them. And to the organization's credit, they were doing a pretty alright job. They drafted a few all-stars. Julius Randle, D'Angelo Russell, Brandon Ingram. Some of them are more fake all-stars than the others, but they are all-stars, along with some other non-lottery power gems, and special shout-out to Lonzo Ball. Hope your knee gets better, bro. But then you add these stars, along with other future starters, future rotation level players that you get late in the draft, a little diamonds in the rough. It's great, it's wonderful. This organization is learning how to build a team the right way, amassing a storm of young talent through the draft, and not through calling in an airstrike of a human being every time things get tough. At the same time though, I don't want to trick you into thinking that this method is perfect. There's a reason why the Lakers haven't done this before. Sometimes no one turns into that quintessential number one you need to get a championship. Or maybe sometimes that talent just doesn't develop at all. And even if it does, the talent could just end up not fitting. A lot of things could happen. But at the same time though, there's just so much talent, you just gotta write it out and let it happen, right? I mean, them boys in Golden State and San Antonio made it work for them, so surely you'd think the Lakers would go on the same path and stop waiting for Superman, right? I mean, It's not like LeBron James is just walking through that door.
Oh wait, he did. Now as you can probably tell, I'm not the same voice from before because I'm here to provide a different perspective on things as a Sacramento Kings fan. Now as you probably know as an NBA fan, the Sacramento Kings aren't the most storybook franchise in the NBA. In fact, they're quite the opposite. Because this year we decided to celebrate like we won the NBA title. Because this year, every Sacramento Kings fan decided to celebrate like we won the goddamn NBA title just because we made the playoffs. Yeah, just for making the playoffs. And I hate to look around the league and see other NBA fan bases getting mad because they don't win the NBA title every year. Like, relax, buddy. Miracles don't happen every year. Unless you're the Lakers. Now, I like to think of myself as a pretty positive guy, I don't like hating. But when the Lakers finally got bad for the first time in their franchise history in the 2010s, oh, you best believe I was jumping up and down. I was jumping for joy. Because finally, the NBA's most storybook franchise took some L's. They know what it feels like to be the little man now. I was happy. And then, arguably the NBA's greatest player of all time decides to sign with a franchise who isn't even making the playoffs just because they're a big name team. After LeBron got sent to the Lakers, it threw me into a slight depression because it made me realize that the Kings aren't ever going to get a big name free agent like that because they're a small market team unlike the Lakers. So, it got me thinking, in franchise history, who is the best free agent the Kings have ever gotten? So, I looked it up, and it turns out that Vlade Divac was the biggest name. And guess what? Vlade Divac was also on the Lakers. Like, you can't make this up. But you know what? LeBron signing with the Lakers actually didn't even matter that much because in 2019, they didn't even make the playoffs. They still know what it felt like to be the little man. They weren't succeeding. And then, they get the best big man in the league in Anthony Davis and lead themselves to a championship off of some trash ass pieces. Like, okay, these were good pieces for the Pelicans, but let's be honest here. We could have seen better offers, but the greatest form of tampering the league has ever seen occurred because Anthony Davis wanted to go nowhere but to the Los Angeles Lakers. So all of this resulted in the Lakers going from a bottom feeder in the league straight up to the top simply because of their name. And Lakers fans still complain, all while me, as a Kings fan, didn't sniff the playoffs in the whole time they were complaining, and let alone win a ring. Like, you see how they're kind of spoiled. Alright, I gotta stop talking. I'm getting mad. Flip the Lakers, man.
So now that we got a glimpse of what the regular populace of basketball thinks of the mild inconveniences of the Lakers' expedited suffering period, let's continue the timeline right up into the real interesting part. After the championship. Another season, primed to repeat one of the best teams in the conference. Oh, oops, the superstars are malfunctioning. You lose in round 1. So the Lakers lost earlier than expected with injuries to the superstars. What do you do here? Well, time to get a superstar again. Trade away 3 NBA players for Russell Westbrook, generational talent. It's worked before, so what could go wrong? Start the season and, oh shit. There's a huge problem. Basketball, as a sport, requires strategy to win against other basketball teams. The talent pool of non-superstars that were taken so for granted in every single championship run that made the difference between winning and losing playoff games that was so deep in Disney World and all those playoff runs before. That talent pool is now basically completely drained with that last trade. And Russell Westbrook and LeBron James? Like orange juice and toothpaste, that shit does not go together. This was a bad basketball fit, and anybody who watched basketball with eyes that went past talking about auras and jersey swap fanfic could kinda see the writing on the wall. But still, everyone here just kind of assumed it'd work, including me, because of course, it always works, with Lakers privilege. But now, for the second time in around 70-ish years, the Lakers privilege didn't just work itself out. Eventually, the fan base starts imploding. Losses keep piling up. The ship was going down. By the end of the season, bloody murder was being screamed across the streets of LA and the rest of the USA because the Lakers missed the entire play-in. They weren't going to be in the postseason. Entire factional wars were started between Russell Westbrook fans and LeBron James fans, because neither of these people were ever fans of teams that missed the playoffs, so both were entirely more annoying and were prone to spreading their mind virus to the particularly vulnerable brain of the average Lakers fan. Because if there were any team fan that has suffered less than whichever player fan you want to name, it has consistently been Lakers fans. And it was getting nasty because, this is the same fan base that sent death threats to a guy for making the Lakers win a championship in 6 games instead of 5. Can you imagine how they handled this guy? Like the crazy part is, Russell Westbrook wasn't a bad basketball player. Inconsistent at times, sure, but he just didn't fit because of other basketball reasons outside of his play. But you try explaining any kind of nuance to these people, and it's like you're speaking ancient Sanskrit to them. They had to rationalize it in the most simple first grader way possible. So instead, they pile on this guy for being a worthless human being that can't play basketball or anything, when the guy's literally just a bad fit. Before I go on, if you don't believe me, just look at how he did when he switched to a place that was like a decent basketball fit. But if you listen to Lakers fans on this, you'd be convinced that the team employed some 7th grade special needs kid called Westbrook, along with a terminally ill man made of glass skin and paper bones with a marshmallow heart, and finally, to top it off, a glory hunter who didn't care about anything but a record. That's not even going to mention what these guys thought of the non-named players. So, after 2 seasons, one where the Lakers actually made the playoffs, by the way, doom and gloom was rampant around the Lakers fan base, and the brainworms from the LaMarcus Aldridge stage now infected the masses once again, including me. In fact, it felt so bleak, I made an entire video explaining how rooting for the most storied and privileged team in the entire NBA was actually a bad thing because of like 3 seasons where the team was mediocre and milquetoast. Except, you wanna know what the funny thing is? By the end of that same season, the Lakers are in the Western Conference Finals, the Final 4 of the NBA. 26 other teams couldn't make it there. Look, you could say that the Lakers did eventually get washed by Nikola Jokic, but I mean, I can think of a lot of other teams that would rather end their season in the Final 4 instead of outside the Final 4 with the other 26 teams. Hell, that Miracle King season ended in the first round, and I guarantee you they feel about 4 times better than the average Lakers fans does for making it 2 rounds further. So you know what? I'm deciding to take it easier, because in the words of a certain Hall of Famer, win, lose, or draw, just have fun.